Welcome to another episode of Nenthead Brews. My name is Andy. I'm a home brewer, beer lover, based here in sunny Cardiff in beautiful Wales. And Nenthead is a Welsh word or a Welsh phrase. It means big stream or big brook. And I like to think of this podcast as a big stream of wonderful guests and brilliant ideas and lovely stories, all loosely associated or sometimes very strongly associated with beer. But it's basically a way of meeting really interesting people with great stories that are linked to beer. And this episode is no different because this is all about beer and campaigning, I guess, but also about pubs, which are such a massive part of our society here in the UK. And I'm really happy to be joined by Laura Seaton, who is campaigning to save a much loved, or maybe not save, and actually Laura will tell me what the right word is, but to get back into the community, a brilliant pub. And I'm not going to talk about it anymore because Laura can explain it far more than me. But Laura, welcome to Nenthead Brews.
Thanks, Andy. Hiya.
So tell us the story of this pub.
So, for your viewers and for your listeners that don't know much about where we are, where I am, I'll give just a little brief overview of Nenthead. So Nenthead is a small village in the heart of Cumbria. We're actually the highest village in England, and we used to have two pubs, and now we were down to one, and obviously that closed pre-pandemic. So Nenthead is a thriving little community, actually. We've had a lot of people move up here from all over the country. The Miners' Arms, when it was open, was really the heart of the village, and sadly didn't reopen after COVID was finished. It's still up for sale, to be fair, and I think we had a meeting in August, so Muggins here decided that I would get the village together to look at the possibility of a community purchase. It was well attended, and the overwhelming feeling was that they want to save the Miners' Arms, and that's kind of our slogan. So where we are at right now, so we formed an interim working group called the Miners' Arms Community Association, or MACA for short, as we like to call ourselves. And we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, looking at various routes like Community Benefit Society by joining the Plunket Foundation. And for people who know about the Plunket Foundation, they're very much, at the heart of saving rural and community based businesses. It's not just pubs. So we have joined the Plunket Foundation. We've had various meetings with them, and we have, launched in the space of sort of 3 months. We've done a lot of work. So we've launched our own website, social media campaigns been going amazingly well. We're getting shared all over the place, and obviously via yourself.
That's because you guys absolutely hammer it. Like honestly, these guys are unstoppable. I first came across this campaign or this story on Twitter or X, and if you follow these guys, they've just been atting kind of anyone and everyone that would have an interest in this story and might be able to help in any way. And I just think it's incredibly smart and incredibly savvy, because social media is the way that messages are kind of propagated out there now, and there Absolutely. Are so many people. It's one of these stories to me, it's one of these stories where when people hear about it, they go, what a great idea, what a great cause. Yes, if I lived in a village like that, a community like that, I would want someone to campaign to get a pub back in the heart of the community. So the fact that you guys are doing it is one thing, but what I'm really impressed with is the kind of modern and savvy way that you're doing it, in that really harnessing the power of social media. So how's that gone? Because I've seen you've been doing lots of interviews, you've been getting lots of support. What's the kind of latest? What's happening?
So you'll see it from our particularly on our X Twitter page. That one of the guys on the group, Max, just been incredible, and we've had quite a lot of good support online, and we were lucky enough. Jay Rayner, who's well renowned food critic and restaurateur, actually put a little snippet in his article that he writes for The Observer last weekend or the weekend before, it might have been, I'm not sure on the dates. But on the back of that, we got absolutely tons of support. We have a Just Given page set up, and in the space of kind of 24 hours, we reached nearly £1,000 in donations. But you know, we've done some. I've done interviews on our local radio station, and you know, we've had newspaper articles, and in our local campaign for Real Ale, the Solway Camera. So they've had us in their sort of monthly news magazine, talking about our plight to bring back the heart of the village, really, because the pub is so essential to this village. It's such a huge miss, you know, that it wasn't just a pub to go for a drink. It was a way of life. It was where you communicated. It's where everyone kind of came together. And particularly where we live, Andy, it's can get quite interesting in the winter months. And we've had many a times and made the news before where we've had complete and utter block-ins because of the snow. And there was only one thing to do when you're blocked in and can't do anything, and that was go up to the pub.
Keep drinking.
Absolutely.
So tell me, you've obviously spent some really good times in the Miners' Arms before it was shut down. Tell me,
Yes.
kind of at its peak, you know, what was it like? What kind of pub was it?
So the Miners' Arms, like I say, it was such a brilliant place to go, and it wasn't just to go for a pint. You know, you would have the regular darts teams, you would have the pool teams, and it used to be packed. You know, Friday nights was darts night in the winter months, but we used to have lots of local clubs and groups used to use it. I'm part of our Nenthead Leek Club. We have an annual leek show up here, which we've got a lot of members for, and we used to host that in the Miners as well. And you couldn't get in. You basically couldn't get in the pub. It was that packed. And that always ended up a bit raucous towards the end of the night as the
it
beer
must have been
kept flowing.
profitable then. If it was that busy, it must have been profitable, right?
Oh, absolutely, I think. And the current owner's still in the pub, and we're working amicably along with her to facilitate a community purchase. But obviously, post-pandemic, it just didn't reopen, and it is just such a shame. So that's why we have come together and are, you know, looking to go down that route to buy the pub.
What does that take? How much money does it take to buy a pub?
What we're going down, I'm sure you've read about it, and other people may or may not know about this. So the government, through their Levelling Up fund after the pandemic, have a pot of money to for businesses, for local areas, rural communities, to purchase buildings, businesses. So we're going down that route, the community ownership fund, which is match funding. So you have to raise a percentage and the government will give you the rest. And they've actually dropped that now. It was 50-50, it's down to 20-80. So if we raise 20%, the government will match the rest. So we are looking at a minimum of £80,000. 150 would be absolutely fantastic. We put out a pledge an offer before we launch our share offer next year, and we're up to nearly £70,000 in pledges in a short space of time. So it's just fantastic that people want to put money into pubs, and it's actually, you know, you can look it up, but it's actually a thing where people buy shares in pubs all around the country. So, you know, we've a couple of the guys on the group have been over to a pub not far from us that did exactly that several years ago and got a lot of really good information from them. So that's what we're looking at, between, you know, minimum of 80, but about 150 would just see everything put in place, and we wouldn't have to then start raising more funds, you know, for kitting it out and getting a new bar in and things like that.
So that would basically buy the building and get you to a point where you could refurb, get operating, and get
Yeah,
trading.
I mean,
Yeah.
and to be fair, it's in really good condition. You know, I mean, the current owners are still there, and you know, the guys on the group have been to view it, so it's pretty ready to go. It just needs a few you know, bits and bobs doing to it. So that's what we're looking for anyway.
One of the challenges here is it's all well and good to buy the pub. I mean, even that is a huge undertaking, and obviously you're making great progress on that. But once you've got it, someone's got to run it. And
Oh, absolutely.
you know, I've talked to various people who've been down this route before. Sometimes it works very well. Other times there's challenges because, you know, with the greatest will in the world, sometimes the people who are most passionate about saving the pub might not be the best people to run the pub, if you see what I mean. You know, we've all got different skills and attributes. But what's your kind of take on that? You know, do you see yourself running it, or is there other people who are going to put their hands up? Is that something that you're kind of not too worried about, or is that something you have to think about?
Well, firstly, I would absolutely love to run it, but
I think you're in prime position. I think you're in prime position.
I would, but I work full time. I'm a nurse practitioner in the NHS, so I can't. But we have a few different options, and as a group, as the MACA group, we have regular meetings to discuss all this. There's different routes you can go down, you know, but I think what we would look down, you can have a tenant route, you can have a manager route. I think we would go down the manager route first. I think realistically, you know, that I mean, there are pubs closing all over the country every single day.
Yeah.
And you know, it's an institution that needs to be saved. I think that going down a volunteer route is not viable. Because you know, you can just imagine it Friday night, you know, Dave's behind the bar and Dave starts having a few pints, and then it's like, you know, it just gets a bit
There's a level of professionalism that you need and require, right?
You need to, yeah, you need to have people in that know what they're doing, kind of thing. You know, that are reliable and that are a bit business savvy. So we've got a few, shall I say, I've got a few back pocket people that I'm just saving. I've already touched base with some people, so
I can imagine if Laura asks you to do something, you've probably got to have quite a good reason to say no. Otherwise, she might keep asking. That's the impression I might get. Now, I'm glad you're taking a drink because we haven't had that discussion yet, and it is a bit of a tradition that when we speak to guests on the Nat Brews podcast, that we each have a drink. So, what are you drinking? Tell me what you're drinking.
I've got some salt juiced IPA.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Session IPA. I quite like a pale ale. To be fair, I'm not a. I do occasionally like a pint of Guinness, but I do like a pale ale. And I never used to drink real ales actually, ever. I was much a lager drinker, but I do like a pale ale, so it's quite nice, that one. It's I'm not a fan of dark ales, shall we say.
So there will be a good craft beer fridge in the Miners' Arms.
There will. Well, actually, Andy, going on to that, we're really lucky because just over the fells we've got a little brewery, the Allendale Brewery.
Okay.
You know, so we're quite lucky. And one of the guys on our group, you know, is quite au fait with lots of different breweries and things, and has got connections. So that's quite handy to have.
Right, and I'll share with you what I'm drinking. So this is my own homebrew. There you go, in the little Nenthead Brews glass as well. Get the branding right. So this is cheers. This is a homebrew lager that I made. As with a lot of homebrews, first time you taste it, you think that's okay, but it could get better, and then you leave it for a couple of months and it tastes amazing. So that's what I'm on. So even if I do say so myself, so that's quite a good one. Okay, so I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have this this talk is because, like you said earlier in the interview, there are so many pubs shutting all the time, and it's, you know, I think if we lose them, they may never come back. Obviously, your community is lucky, and you have a lot to do with this, and that there's an effort being made to save it, to reinstate it. But in a lot of communities, that just won't happen. So, you know, why is it that we are losing pubs at a rate of knots, do you think?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is rates. I think a lot, and the high energy prices, etc. And the high food costs. You've got to look at that because it affects not just businesses, it affects everybody. I think that's fundamentally. I also think that as a culture, we've changed towards drinking. You would always just go out to the pubs. Years ago, when I was younger, that was your place to socialize, and the internet changes things as well. I think that in rural communities, especially one like Nenthead where I live, you really rely on your pub for a place to come in and talk and things like that. But I definitely think that times are changing with regards to going out drinking. It was such a big sort of social activity years ago and that everywhere you went there was pubs. I mean, now you drive past and there's pubs boarded up, or sadly some pubs that have change of use and are turned into properties and houses, which is such a shame.
Is that a
They're a
danger?
national treasure.
If
They
that
should be
wasn't,
saved.
if you weren't doing what you were doing for the Miners' Arms, do you think that's what would happen to it? It would become back to being a house? Or, I mean, what's the history of the building? That's something I wanted to ask. There's a couple of things I want to know. One, what's the history of the building? Was it always a pub? And two, talk us through the miners bit.
Yeah, so the pub is nearly 200 years old. In 2027, I think it'll be 200 years old. So Nenthead was back in the day, was a really, really big lead mining industrial kind of village. And in the 1700s, the London Lead Mining Company actually came up here to obviously harvest all the lead ore. But I think it was like the nearly 1900s, there was a Ville-Montagne Zinc Company actually bought or took over the lead mining side of things. And on the back of that, what they said was that they obviously needed to modernize and bring technology and things to Nenthead. So actually, Nenthead was the first place in England to have electricity. It was the first place to have street lights. So we're quite famous that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's funny, whenever you speak to anyone from any place, anywhere, there is always something that is unique to that place. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Nenthead was kind of the kind of hub, the cutting edge of the lead mining industry at some point.
Yeah, well, obviously there was a lot of workers here and they had to provide for them. So they built, they had school, there was a reading room, library, there was like public bathhouses and things. And obviously part of all of that the Miners' Arms was incorporated into all of this. I can't remember exactly, but I think my husband was talking about it, and I think it used to be called the Nenthead Hotel prior to that, but I'm not 100% sure. But certainly the pub has been there for nearly 200 years. So, it would be absolutely devastating if we lost that, because it's such a unique part of history as well, because of what the village used to be. I mean, it was massive. There was people came from all over to work in Nenthead. It was absolutely huge back in the 1700s and 1800s.
Are you Nenthead born and raised?
Well, yes and no. I was born in one of the main towns in Carlisle, and I've kind of been around the world and ended up back here on a whistle-stop tour. I lived in South Africa for nearly 10 years and lived in Newcastle as well. But I've been back here now for over 10 years. And it's just an amazing place to live. Where I work is not too far away. And actually, Nenthead's in a great location because you're only an hour away from Newcastle, from Durham. So you're not far at all.
So I'm trying to picture Nenthead because obviously you said it's the highest, is it the highest village?
Highest village in England, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously it's interesting. You've got this huge industry descending on a small place that's quite inaccessible and building all these kind of big buildings. So you know, do things like the baths and the reading room and stuff, do they all still remain and they've turned into different
Yeah.
things? And
So the reading room is actually our community shop, which is again community owned and community ran. You know, that used to be the reading room. We had the big chapel that is in between the shop and the Miners Arms pub that is now being made into an art centre and a cafe, and so you know it's great. And we're right in the heart of the coast to coast as well, Andy. I must say that the you know it's the most popular cycling route in England. And we're lucky enough to have our own bike shop as well, so bike repair shop, which is again nestled in the middle of all of it.
what talking about how, you know, pubs need to adapt to the future, and you know, and this is something that happens in every industry. You know, you can't expect to stay the same. But you know, cycling is a huge part of it. You know, there are many pubs now that change their opening hours to accommodate cyclists and maybe offer non-alcoholic. You know, they might maybe put on some extra breakfast and coffee and stuff at the weekend when the cyclists are out, and then you know aim to get them back at the end of their ride for a pint or two. So that's a potential. You know, if you're on that route, that's a massive opportunity for you guys.
Absolutely massive. And these are all the things, you know, as a community pub, it is not just about a pub. It's about catering for, you know, people that live here, but massively about people that come to visit the village. You know, we're lucky enough to have the road coming right through the village, and the cyclists will cycle past the pub. I mean, it's been so sad the last couple of years with the pub being closed, and you see all the cyclists coming through, and you know, a lot of them just want to go and get a bite to eat or a pint, and you know, the door's closed. So it'd be absolutely fantastic to see not only the cyclists, but we have a lot of motorcyclists come through. You know, it's just such a shame, and that is why we are doing what we're doing, because I truly believe we will achieve everything that we're setting out to do. Definitely.
What's your vision, Laura? If you could kind of, you know, manifest it into being, as the as the trendy kind of phrase would be, you know, so given that maybe it's at most, or you know, at best, a couple of years away from by the time you've got through everything, I guess. I can't really. I mean, am I wrong? Is that about right? What's the quickest you could open, you think, if everything went perfectly?
Oh well, we've actually because when you apply for the government funding, you have to put an expression of interest form in before they even let you apply for the community ownership fund, and we've been accepted for that. We got an email the other day, so that was absolutely brilliant. So we are now putting a robust business plan together to then submit a full application. Open the share offer up in spring next year, because you know winter Christmas time's always a bit of a rough time to start asking people to now give us money to open the pub and buy it. So but I think it's reasonable to say that this time next year the pub will be open.
Wow. Okay, brilliant. Well, so that
Yeah.
is, and that makes it tangible and achievable, right? You know, that's like if we can just put the work in for a year, we could be sat there having a pint this time next year. So that's what I was going to ask you is kind of paint the picture. What's your, you know, what ideal vision do you have of your kind of night in the new Miners Arms, and because I often find when you're trying to do something like this where it requires a bit of belief and a bit of hard work as well, having that vision there is what drives you forward, isn't it? So what's in your mind's eye about, you know, the big return to the Miners Arms?
I think one of the biggest things, I mean, you know, when you think of a country pub, you think of nice comfy chairs, a big fire, nice real ales. You know, you want to have a bit of music on in the background. You want to have lots of people talking, laughing, singing possibly. But I think the vision for myself and for many people in this village, because it's the topic of conversation every day when you see people, is, you know, we want to be in that pub, we want to be sitting down, we want to be having a pint, we want to be talking, chatting, putting the worlds to rights, having a good moan, because that's what people do. I just, my vision would be to get that pub back open and to see people smiling and happy and so grateful that we've got it back open and that it's been saved, because we've already said how many pubs we're losing every single day, and it's just awful, really is.
It's a really compelling vision, and yeah, I wanted to be in a country pub as soon as you started describing it. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Look, I think another reason why I wanted to do this episode is that there will be a lot of people who would love to do what you're doing, or and just maybe haven't got a Laura, or maybe they need to be the Laura or the Max, and they're just thinking, well, I don't know where to start. So for those people, what are the very first practical steps to get even to the point where you're at now, if they want to save a pub that has been shut?
The first thing that you have to do is to gauge interest from where your local community, and that's what we did. We put surveys out at every single household. We had them online, because without that you won't actually know whether people want to do that. You have to get surveys out. You definitely need to get in touch with the Plunkett Foundation, who are the really good advisors on looking down purchasing community buildings and businesses. And you need to get a good team of people with an array of sort of whatever that I can't think what the word is, brain's gone dead.
Skills
like skills and experience. We're lucky enough because we've got guys on that financially savvy, so it's good to have. We've managed to get a bank account opened, which is always a bit of a challenge when you are a community benefit society building, pub, whatever you're going for. So that's a bit of a tackle. But I think one of the biggest things, Andy, is like you said, and what we're doing, you need to get your message out there as well and get it shared absolutely everywhere you can, because somebody will pick your story up like you have, and we're not alone. There's lots of people, there's a couple of groups on Facebook where people talk about losing their pubs, and I've reached out to a few of them, because putting a petition online is not going to stop pubs closing. You have to actually be proactive and do something about it, but definitely you need to gauge with the community as to if they actually want to do something about it.
And presumably anyone that wants to follow in your footsteps, I mean, this is the way things work. This is the way pubs work. This is the way beer works. Is part of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, is because anyone I've spoken to in the beer industry, little craft brewers, home brewers, as soon as you go and say, I'm interested in this, I don't quite know where to start, they're so generous with their time and their knowledge because they're passionate about it. And so I'm sure that if anyone is in that position, they just need to reach out to you and you will give them the advice of what you've learned so far, right?
Oh, absolutely. And once we have got everything up and running and things, I would encourage anyone to come along and visit and have a chat, because that's what we did. We went and spoke to the people that have done this before us, and you can't get enough, information from them. So I would definitely say if people want to know anything more, they can certainly get in touch with us and have a chat.
Well, one thing I'm going to guarantee you right here and right now is if you are open this time next year, I will be there, and we are doing an episode of Nat Bauer Brews from the Miners'
Yeah,
Arms.
absolutely will, Andy. I was going to say that to you anyway.
what a brilliant thing it'll be to see this story kind of come full circle. And honestly, nothing would give me more pleasure. Now, this is the really, really important bit. You've got to do your bit about how people can get involved, how they can help, where they can find you, what you need people to do. So go for it.
So we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, and we are on X/Twitter, and it's the Miners' Arms Nenthead. If you just kind of put that into Google, it will come up on Facebook.
Nenthead spelled as you thought, as you think it would be.
Yeah, it's NENT and then head. But on Facebook, I'm sorry, I'm just having a look. Yeah, it's Miners' Arms Nenthead on there, and on our website as well, which is Miners' Arms Nenthead as well. I think it is minersarmsnenthead.com, all one word. and it's got all the links to everything in there, and it's also got a contact form. So if anybody wants to ask us, you know, how we have got to where we are, because since August we've done such a lot and achieved so much. So it's, you know, anybody can do it. If we can, anybody can do it. We're the highest village in England with one pub, and you know, we're achieving good things, and long may they last.
Yeah, but you know, I've got to say to you, and you mentioned Max, and I'm sure there's others on the committee, but
Yeah,
you know what you're doing in terms of the outreach is fantastic. And you know, as soon as I got in touch, within minutes, there was a reply saying, yeah, yes, we'll do that, and I that goes a long way. So you know,
yeah,
congratulations to you guys. It doesn't, I'm sure it's taking up all of your spare time and all of your spare headspace, and given that you're working in the NHS, you probably haven't got much of that anyway. So, you know, like, well done you for doing it. This is, you know, a lot of people think about doing stuff like this or talk about doing it, but not many people actually do it. So, you know, hats off to you guys, and well done. I think all I would add is, you know, go and support these guys in any way you can. So I think, judging by how amazing they've been on social media, if you Google Miners Arms Nenthead, I think you will get bombarded with information. So fill your boots up on the information, get sharing, and you know, like me, follow this story and root for these guys, because you know, we all take our local pubs for granted, and one day they could get taken away from us, and then you will want guys like this doing something about it, and maybe you need to be one of those guys as well. So Laura, thank you so much for coming on the Nat Vale Brews podcast. It's been an absolute joy chatting to you. I wish you all the best with this campaign, and yes, cheers, and anything I can do to help, just let me know.
I appreciate it, Andy, and thanks for inviting us on and getting our message out.
No worries, all the best, and I really, really, really hope that this time next year we will be doing an episode from the new Miners Arms, or Miners Arms 2.0 in Nenthead. So Laura, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.